We will not start a war against Greenland.
Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines this hour. President Trump says he will tell all European leaders at the Davos that the US has to have Greenland for global security. The EU chief, Ursula von der Leyen, calls his tariff threats a mistake and vows a united response. The UK government approves plans for China to build a large embassy in central London. The move draws criticism from residents and rights groups despite official planning consent. President Zelensky says the Greenland dispute may distract from Russia's war in Ukraine. He urges the US to pressure Moscow after Russian strikes cut heating in Kyiv. Dozens of ISIS fighters escaped prison during heavy clashes between Syrian forces and Kurdish-led fighters. Negotiations between Damascus and the SDF collapse as government troops advance east. Ukraine's Chernobyl nuclear plant loses all off-site power after widespread military activity. The IAEA says key substations and power lines critical to nuclear safety are affected. The UK defends its plan to cede Chagos sovereignty to Mauritius after President Trump calls it great stupidity. London says the deal protects the UK-US military base under a 99-year lease. Israeli bulldozers begin demolishing structures at UNRWA's East Jerusalem headquarters. Israel says the site has no legal immunity, while UNRWA calls it unprecedented. Netflix submits an all-cash $82.7 billion offer for Warner Bros. Discovery's studio and streaming assets. The bid has full board support and seeks to block a rival move by Paramount. We start this hour in the Middle East, and the United Arab Emirates have accepted an invitation to join US President Donald Trump's Board of Peace to oversee the post-war reconstruction of Gaza. The decision highlights the UAE's strong ties with the US and its commitment to implementing Trump's peace plan. This comes amid rising tensions in the Arab world, particularly due to the UAE's normalization of relations with Israel under the Abraham Accords. Meanwhile, Norway has confirmed it cannot participate in the initiative as it is currently structured. The country's deputy foreign minister expressed concerns about the framework in his statement. And France, although supportive of the peace plan's implementation in Gaza, has raised concerns over the creation of a new organization that could potentially replace the United Nations. Joining us now is Raymond Vickery. He's an international affairs expert, American attorney and former US Assistant Secretary of Commerce. He joins us live from Washington. Raymond, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Of course, Donald Trump's Board of Peace, something we don't know much about, how it will be structured, how it will operate. We don't know all the members on it. However, what we do know is that Donald Trump will be the chair. He will be the lifelong chair. You also need $1 billion to be a lifelong member. Some countries, understandably, being reluctant about initially pledging to join the organization, both because of the unclear structure and, of course, its potential to rival an already established organization, the United Nations. What do you think of Donald Trump's Board of Peace as it moves forward and people, of course, join it?
Well, thanks very much for having me. It's always a privilege to be with you. It seems to me that the world should be under no illusion about what is in this proposal. This is not a proposal for world peace. It is a proposal along the lines of President Trump's conduct historically, and that is to have a transaction in which he comes out as the winner and everybody else is a loser or certainly diminished. This is not the way forward in terms of waging peace in the world, which requires not only a strategy, it requires partners. It does not require a board of chairman, a chairman of the board who dictates to the rest of the members what to do. So this is a wholly inadequate approach. It is really, in some instance, a piece with his push to destroy the United Nations. I think he's made no mistake, no mystery about his intention in that regard. He has withdrawn the United States from 66 world organizations, including those having to do with health, having to do with trade, all of the architecture which has been built up since World War II and has largely kept the peace. President Trump sees as a mechanism to extract concessions, money, wealth from the United States. So this Board of Peace is not a Board of Peace. It's not even pointed at Gaza. That having been said, it seems to me that the way forward is to try to work with the hand which has been dealt the United States and the world by the mistake of electing President Trump as President of the United States, and to try to use this as an opportunity to provide leadership in reform of the United Nations, in recommitment to the principles which are in the United Nations, namely non-aggression, non-interference in the affairs of others, and to try to wage peace in a logical and a way forward which is not a one-off transaction. So Donald Trump thrives on chaos. This is a part of chaos creation. Tomorrow he will appear with this proposal at Davos, which will create more chaos, and he expects to come out of that as the winner. It is time for India, other great democracies in Western Europe, Japan, in the global South, Brazil, to step forward and not simply say this is something we can ignore, but to try to shape what the world architecture for peace and stability will be going forward. But make no mistake about it, this proposal is a part of the transactional and smokescreen for aggrandizement of President Donald J. Trump. And we need, both in the United States, in India, across the world, to pull together those forces which have largely kept the peace since World War II, or else we're going to be on a steadily downhill trajectory.
Raymond, of course, do you think in this volatile year that is the start of 2026, do you think this idea, this Board of Peace, could move forward? Do you think we could see some of the world's top powers joining such a thing? Of course, we've seen none of the G7 really accept formally yet. But do you see that happening?
I don't see it happening on the charter, which has been put forward as it is. It is not a cooperative approach. It's basically a top-down American corporate style of organization. It has no principles, preamble, which is absolutely essential, whether it be the Constitution of India, the United States, United Nations. You have to start with principles and work from there. This does not start from principles. What it starts with is a person, and then it asks others to join in order to be able to do it. It does, though, offer opportunity to look at what the world peace and stability architecture is. The United Nations is in need of reform. The veto powers of the Security Council have hamstrung the organization. The Global South is not adequately represented. But make no mistake about it, this Board of Peace does not attack fundamental problems. What it does is substitute a top-down transactional approach, which is not in its present form acceptable. But the solution is not to say, oh, well, it's just another Donald Trump crazy idea. It is to try to form partnerships to get back to basic principles and have a strategy which will keep us from World War III. Because what has been the history is that when you do not operate in that way, the world descends into a very, very difficult situation.
Raymond, do stay with us as we move on to another development. And Greenland's Prime Minister, Jens Frederik Nielsen, has said that while military action against the island is unlikely, it cannot be entirely ruled out, especially in the light of US President Donald Trump's threats to take control of Greenland. Nielsen emphasized that Greenland is part of NATO and any escalation would have global consequences. Let's take a listen into the statements.
Vi arbejder på at sikre, at vi har sådan en god samarbejde med andre lande. Det handler ikke om alene om Grønland, men det handler om internationale forhold og hele verden. Den styrkede og skærpede arbejde, vi benytter, skal vi fortsætte med. Vi skal have en tæt samarbejde med Danmark. Vi skal have en tæt samarbejde med NATO. Og selvfølgelig EU's ledende lande.
Det er ikke sandsynligt, at der vil være en brug af militær magt, men det er ikke udelukket endnu. Og lederen fra den anden side har sagt det meget klart ud, at det ikke er udelukket. Og vi skal selvfølgelig være forberedt til alt det, der er muligt. Men vi skal understrege, at Grønland er en del af den vestlige alliance NATO, og så frem der sker eskalere mere, så vil det også have konsekvenser for hele omverdenen.
Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen also weighed in, stating that Denmark cannot negotiate on its sovereignty, identity, borders or democracy. She further warned that the worst might still lie ahead as Trump's goal to control Greenland and his refusal to rule out military action could lead to severe geopolitical consequences. Let's listen in to the Danish Prime Minister.
Det vi står i, det handler om meget mere end os selv. Vi kan forhandle om alt politisk, sikkerhed, investeringer, men vi kan ikke forhandle om vores helt fundamentale værdier. Suverænitet, vores landes identitet og vores grænser.
Raymond Vickery joins us once again to discuss the ongoing situation surrounding Greenland. Of course, Raymond, this is another situation where Donald Trump is speaking unapologetically about his intentions here. Is he going to completely alienate Europe with these stances? And of course, stance when it comes to the Ukraine war as well. Do you see the Greenland issue and the Ukraine war issue at Davos frustrating the US?
Apparent that President Trump's approach is a throwback to the 19th century in which you built empires. And he considers the Western Hemisphere to be Russia in Europe, China in Asia, in order to be able to see himself in the position of a great person. And I would point out that in the history of the world, this is nothing new. This is, and his mindset is a throwback to that. The whole approach in regard to Greenland is as if we are being thrust into an alternative reality. The very idea is unthinkable in ordinary terms. So that having been said, it is a time in which great proceeds. We are faced with the situation in which troops are being sent into the streets in Minnesota, in which there is disregard for plain immigration laws. So it's a very, very difficult time. But we can pull together the forces which have kept the peace largely since World War II and get through this. But it's going to be a very, very difficult prospect.
Raymond, just spread over Canada and spread over Greenland and Venezuela, actually. This is of course, rhetoric surrounding Donald Trump's takeover of the territory. It seems like Europeans are trying their hardest here. But of course, the United States has the most powerful military in the world by a mile. And of course, Denmark is a territory with a population of only 60,000 people. Donald Trump not having Greenland by then.
Yes, I see him not having Greenland by then in terms of actual being able to control and go forward. You know, there is a history here of the United States and its military power. And whether it be in Vietnam, whether it be in Iraq, the idea that you just have one transaction and that solves and makes the problem conform to what Donald Trump says is not right. So sure, it's possible for the United States military to step in, but that won't be the end of the story. The rest of the world is going to have to come together in order to be able to constrain this my way or the highway control of what little there is in the way of actual habitation in Greenland. That's not the end of the story, and that does not mean that Greenland is a part of the United States. We have faced very difficult times for 250 years here, but our institutions have held, and we are faced with that again. But as you point out, midterms are coming. There are important decisions of the Supreme Court of the United States, and I have every hope that if the world will maintain its cool and not resort to the kind of armed conflict which has bedeviled mankind since time immemorial, require a vision from nations, India, Western Europe, and so forth, which is greater than just can I protect my borders and I can protect what is my interest today.
Yes.
And we can get back to that situation.
Raymond Vickery, as always, it's a great pleasure speaking to you. Thank you very much for taking the time in joining us. We now move on, and at the 2026 World Economic Forum in Davos, French President Emmanuel Macron says that he has no intention of speaking to US President Donald Trump. This decision comes amid heightened diplomatic tensions following Trump's recent threats to impose 200% tariffs on French wine and champagne. Macron also stated that Europe should not hesitate to deploy its anti-coercion instrument if the US follows through with tariffs. This mechanism is designed to respond to third countries using trade measures to pressure EU policy. Macron denounced the endless accumulation of new tariffs as fundamentally unacceptable, particularly when used as leverage against territorial integrity and sovereignty. This was a direct reference to Trump's threats against countries opposing his proposal for the US to acquire Greenland. Europe is weighing out countermeasures as we speak after Trump has threatened to impose tariffs on 8 European countries over the Greenland standoff, though Washington has warned that any retaliatory levies would be unwise. Let's listen in to what the French president had to say.
Europe has very strong tools now, and we have to use them when we are not respected and when the rules of the game are not respected, by the way. The anti-coercion mechanism is a powerful instrument, and we should not hesitate to deploy it in today's tough environment. We must also advance the principle of European preference. There is a North American preference in your market. There is no European preference today. We are progressively creating it, and in the latest documents and decisions taken by the decisions, we do have the first examples of that, but this is extremely good. Here, in the epicenter of this continent, we do believe that we need more growth, we need more stability in this world, but we do prefer respect to bullies, we do prefer science to plotism, and we do prefer rule of law to brutality. You're welcome in Europe, and you are more than welcome to France. I mean, it doesn't make sense to have tariffs and be divided, and even to threaten now with additional tariffs. We can use the crazy thing is that we can be put in a situation to use the anti-coercion mechanism for the very first time vis-à-vis the US if they put additional tariffs. Can you imagine that? This is crazy. I do regret that, but this is a consequence of just unpredictability and useless aggressivity.
Collins Chong-Yu Keat joins us now, a foreign affairs, security and strategy analyst, joining us live from Kuala Lumpur. Thank you very much for joining us. We see French President Emmanuel Macron seemingly pretty frustrated with Donald Trump's actions. The two have met many times, and seem to be all smiles. However, now it seems that he's reached the end of his tether. Of course, these European tariffs that Donald Trump has placed on 8 countries have been unprecedented. So we haven't really seen anything like this before. Collins, of course, Europe, a long-time standing ally of the United States. What did you make of President Emmanuel Macron's statements there? Pretty standoffish statements towards the US president.
Well, certainly, of course, there's this compelling, profound frustration on the side of Macron. Of course, by stating that the need to remain calm, of course, also is to signal composure. It's not a signal of concession to President Trump. Of course, also it's meant to reassure the interests of our people, our producers in France, in Europe. So it is meant as as a confidence-building booster. And of course, this is strategic positioning. It's not de-escalation. So the whole notion is to frame France and to frame Europe as the entities that are based on rationality, on the notion of the rules-based system, and being a responsible power, and trying to frame President Trump as being otherwise. So of course, also the implicit statement will be to cast this whole different model being used by President Trump in terms of tariff in terms of the intent on Greenland as being a unilateral move and unpredictable in nature. So this is of course also the is a delicate, difficult, complex tightrope now for Macron to walk into, because we have seen how on one side he needs to maintain the ties with Washington, with President Trump, on of course on the grounds that will be of great importance to France, but at the same time also he's being tied down by the need for regional, the mechanism of Europe to portray this unified stance and unified front, in opposing the move by President Trump on Greenland, and also the subsequent tariff moves on allies also. So this is no longer an conventional ideological battle. This is about a new way forward in terms of how national interests will be served, will be maintained, and that of course, as I've stated, Greenland's security is pivotal not only to the US but to Europe as a whole. And seeing how this will turn out for the next couple of months, it is very unwise for France and for other European partners to take the tough road, to double down on their stance, and seeing how President Trump will respond, not only using tariff but other measures as well. So I think this is the timeline for them to recalibrate and to avoid using this tough rhetoric, which will incur further risks down the road.
Collins Chong Yu Keat, do stay with us as we move on to our next story. And China says it wants to work with the United States to advance stable relations between the two countries. The Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jiakun stressed that despite ups and downs in the past year, China-US relations have maintained overall stability. Guo said this stability serves the shared interests of both countries and the international community. He also noted that China-US cooperation is mutually beneficial, while confrontation would hurt both sides. He added that China is ready to work with the US on promoting a steady development of their relations, but also emphasized that China will firmly defend its sovereignty, security, and development interests. This statement comes as both countries continue to face complex issues in their diplomatic ties. Let's listen into the statements.
过去1年，中美关系历经起伏波折，实现总体动态稳定，这符合中美两国人民的共同利益，也符合国际社会的共同期待。1年来，中美关系发展的历程再次表明，中美合则两利，斗则俱伤。中美应该在平等、尊重、互惠基础上，探索两个大国的正确相处之道。中方愿同美方一道，推动中美关系稳定发展，同时坚定维护自身主权、安全和发展利益。
Collins joins us once again. Collins, quite a positive statement there from the Chinese spokesperson. Given that, of course, we saw what some would call a trade war between the two countries. Of course, we've seen arms sales to Taiwan, which has aggravated relations along the Taiwan Strait further, among many other instances of aggravated superpowers flexing their muscles at one another. How do you analyse this statement coming from the Chinese Foreign Ministry that in fact touts the relations as somewhat stable?
Well, China is facing sustained pressure now. He is now being forced into a tight corner by President Trump's moves, from Venezuela to Iran to, tight control, on, of course, also different, comprehensive measures in place. And this statement should be read as a tactical signaling. Of course, not a fundamental shift in posture from Beijing. And of course, we have seen how, the pressure being faced in terms of slowing domestic growth, in terms of the demographic decline, in terms of capital outflows, the investor caution in China, and with all these economic measures in place, and tariffs, and trade, tax sanctions, financial decoupling. So all these have forced Beijing into this, to compel Beijing to have this move, this fallback option to portray restraint and to reduce external friction. And of course, also this is also being meant as a strategic messaging, a narrative, to other powers that China needs to be seen as the one that is willing to reset ties. And of course, also this will have profound positive implications on its perception and narrative. So, but of course, we have seen how the timing of this entire equation, where domestic pressures and domestic limitations, and the need to portray positive signals to President Trump. Also, at the same time, in parallel, we have seen red lines have been continue to remain so with regards to Taiwan, with regards to ensuring that all the moves by not only by the US but by Japan will then be framed as the ultimate red lines being set, and that we have seen how the measures in place in terms of these friend-sharing efforts, fallback options by Beijing, defense diplomacy or economic diplomacy with South Korea now, with ASEAN and with Europe and with Canada. So these are all being done in parallel, but at the same time also to send these two-pronged message to the West, to Washington, that while we are all out we are ready to have this recalibrated ties, positive note. At the same time also we are more than capable to sow discord or divisiveness in the Western Hemisphere, in the Western Front, with regards to the move now to have a new wave of ties with Canada. So this is a strategic move by Beijing. It is by no measure that is being seen as a weak, as a weaker partner, but more of a messaging, a positive messaging to other countries that China is the bigger party here in terms of readiness to play its part in the wider needs for a more stable region.
Collins, Chong Yu Keat, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We finish this hour in the Middle East, where amid the shifting front lines in northeastern Syria, reports regarding the Shaddadi prison break have been a major point of contention between the Syrian government and the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces. In the hours following the breakout, Syrian special forces and army units entered Shaddadi to secure the prison and launch an immediate manhunt. While reports suggest that over 2,000 prisoners have escaped, US officials have said that many of them have been recaptured. The chaos erupted as the Syrian government forces and local tribal groups moved to take control of the Hasakah province following the collapse of a brief ceasefire, leading to a breakdown in security at the detention facility. Meanwhile, the situation remains volatile. The two sides continue to trade blame, with Damascus accusing the SDF of intentionally releasing prisoners as political blackmail, while the SDF maintains that they lost control of the site due to relentless attacks by pro-government factions. We have some breaking news, and at least 31 civilians were killed in an armed attack on Sunday in the village of Boisai, located in western Niger near the borders with Burkina Faso and Mali. The attack, carried out by unidentified assailants, left 30 people dead at the scene, while one of the 5 wounded later succumbed to their injuries in a medical centre. The region, known for being plagued by jihadist groups, has been experiencing increasing violence in recent years. Local sources and a student union confirmed the death toll. This attack marks the latest in a series of brutal assaults in the area, raising concerns about the security situation across the Sahel. Well, that's all that we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more international news updates.